Okay, so let's unpack this. Imagine you're staring at a blank page, right? You need fresh ideas, genuine feedback, maybe a shared vision from a huge, diverse group, could be a whole community or like a large company. But you know those traditional meetings, they often shut people down.
Yeah, they really can.
And one-on-one interviews just take forever.
Yeah.
So how do you spark that real, unscripted conversation, where everyone feels heard and ideas actually ignite?
Well, what's fascinating here is that there's a brilliant method specifically designed for exactly this. It's one that's, quietly gaining significant traction in research, community building, even corporate strategy. It's called the World Café.
The World Café.
Right.
Okay, that's what we're diving into today. We're taking a deep dive into this really powerful method. We're pulling insights from academic research, practical guides, and our mission, really, for you listening, is to get under the hood of what it is, why it's so uniquely effective, and crucially, how it really stands apart from those, more established qualitative methods like individual interviews and focus groups.
Exactly.
By the end of this deep dive, you should have a really clear picture of when this collaborative approach might be exactly what you need to unlock some serious collective knowledge. Okay, so to really appreciate its power, we first need to strip it back a bit. What exactly is a World Café at its core?
Well, at its heart, the World Café, or WC as you might see it, is a participatory assessment tool for qualitative data. It was first introduced back in 1995 by J. Brown and D. Isaacs.
Okay.
And the name itself, World Café, it perfectly captures the essence, really. It's literally about creating that relaxed, sort of neutral cafe vibe. A public space where people feel comfortable enough to just talk.
Right. Less formal.
Exactly. No stiff formalities, just open, sort of intimate conversations where people feel free to engage. It actually started as an inclusionary tool for citizen participation, organizational change, and now it's a fully recognized and respected research method in its own right.
I love that image of a cafe. It just immediately sets such a relaxed tone, doesn't it? But I'm guessing it's not just a free-for-all coffee morning, right? There must be some underlying structure, principles that make it work.
Oh, absolutely. You've hit on something crucial there. It's not random at all. It's actually guided by 7 very deliberate design principles. These are really key to its success.
7 principles, okay.
First, it's about purposefully setting the context, making it really clear why everyone's there. Then, crucially, creating a hospitable space, physically making it comfortable, inviting, often, with drinks, maybe some quiet music, almost like a real cafe. The next few are about the conversation itself. Exploring questions that truly matter, getting to the heart of the issue. Then encouraging everyone's contribution, making sure all voices are heard.
That's important.
Very. And then the really clever part, I think, is cross-pollinating and connecting those diverse perspectives as people move between tables.
Ah, okay. The movement.
Yes. And finally, it's about listening together for patterns and deeper questions, and then harvesting and sharing the collective discoveries at the very end.
That cafe image is brilliant. So, okay, take us from the concept to reality. How does a World Café actually unfold in a room? I'm picturing small tables.
You're spot on. In practice, you set up these artificial cafes, small tables, typically seating maybe 4 or 5 participants each. But here's the genius part. Each session involves at least 3 consecutive rounds of conversation, usually around 20 minutes per round.
3 rounds, okay.
And there's this unique critical role, the table host. One participant stays put at their table while the others rotate to new tables after each round.
Ah, so one person anchors each table.
Exactly. And this isn't just about changing seats. It's the engine of that cross-pollination we talked about. The host shares the key points from the previous discussion with the new group arriving at the table.
I see.
This ensures ideas don't just stay stuck at one table, but they actually travel, evolve, build on each other as they move around the room.
So the ideas genuinely travel and get richer with each stop. That's quite a dynamic twist. And the questions, you said they can be flexible.
Exactly right. You could use the same questions for multiple rounds to really dig deep, or you could pose different questions each round to sort of build on the insights as they emerge. It depends on your goals.
And how do they capture everything? Just scribbling notes?
Pretty much. Participants write down their ideas. They might draw sketches, use symbols, whatever works. They do it right there on large sheets of paper covering the tables, like paper tablecloths or sometimes on individual placemats.
Okay. Visual and immediate.
Very. And then after all the rounds, there's the harvest phase. This is a whole group conversation. Everyone comes back together to identify common patterns, share that collective knowledge, and maybe even start talking about possible actions. It's a very dynamic process.
It really sounds like it bridges that gap between, structured research and just organic conversation brilliantly. And it's found its way into so many areas beyond just academic research, hasn't it? You see it popping up elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's really spread. Beyond academia, the World Café is widely used in community development, strategic planning, also in medical settings, educational sectors, even things like consumer studies, government offices, you name it. Its adaptability and that strong emphasis on inclusive dialogue, well, that's led to its broad adoption.
Okay, so with all that in mind, why would someone choose a World Café for data collection over, say, other methods? What are its big standout strengths?
Well, one of its primary strengths, and it's a huge one, is its capacity for really inclusive participation. It can effectively gather data from a very large number of stakeholders. Some sources suggest it can scale up to maybe 1,000 people.
1,000? Wow.
Yeah, think about that. Instead of hearing from just a handful of voices, you can tap into the collective wisdom of hundreds. It fundamentally democratizes the data collection process, ensuring your insights are grounded in broad reality, not just, a select few.
Right.
And this broad inclusion, naturally, it can significantly increase your reference sample and reduce selection bias.
So it's not just about collecting opinions, and it sounds like a genuinely participatory process. The learning happens for everyone involved, not just the researchers. That part of its strength.
That's exactly it. Participants aren't just passive recipients giving you data. They're active players in actually producing the knowledge.
Wow.
And this active role, well, it motivates their participation, makes the responses often richer. It helps groups move beyond just simple information transfer, like a presentation, to a true information exchange. And this encourages what some call cognitive reframing, where people literally start to see things differently, expanding their perspectives by hearing others.
And that's where magic happens, right? Those evolving conversations, sparking that incredible cross-pollination of ideas.
Yes, that's a key benefit. Those evolving rounds of information exchange, moving tables, it naturally leads to this cross-pollination. This environment becomes a true sort of organic idea incubator. As ideas travel, they get refined, challenged, maybe fused with new perspectives. This often sparks really breakthrough insights that simply wouldn't emerge from individual reflection or even a static focus group where everyone stays put. It's collective intelligence in action.
And it sounds incredibly efficient, too. Imagine trying to get that much diverse input with individual interviews. The time.
It is remarkably efficient. You can collect a really wide range of qualitative data from a large number of people in a relatively short time frame, often just a few hours.
That's a huge plus.
Definitely. And furthermore, the method inherently reduces interviewer bias because the direct interaction between the facilitator or interviewer and the participants is minimal during the actual discussion rounds. They're facilitating the process, not directing the content as much.
Sure.
It also promotes a high degree of confidentiality. Individual responses aren't usually traced back to specific people. Those notes on the tablecloths, typically anonymous, written by the participants themselves.
Okay, we've talked about its strengths, which are clearly compelling. But to truly grasp the World Café's unique niche, we need to put it head-to-head, Yeah. Compare it with the qualitative research methods many of us are already familiar with. Let's unpack how it stacks up against, say, individual semi-structured interviews first.
Right. Individual semi-structured interviews, ISIS, they're fantastic for deep, really in-depth exploration of complex topics or maybe sensitive ones. They allow for trust and confidentiality to build between the interviewer and interviewee. And the interviewer can really probe for clarification, ask follow-up questions, leading to rich, detailed responses. You can ensure data completeness that way.
True. But the flip side is ISIS really only capture individual perspectives, right?
Right.
The output remains individually constructed. You don't get that group dynamic.
Exactly. That's a key difference.
And they can be prone to interviewer bias, depending on how questions are asked, or maybe socially desirable responses from the interviewee. Plus, getting a representative sample can be tricky. And the transcription, oh my goodness, the transcription is incredibly time-consuming.
Oh, tell me about it.
We're talking hours, maybe days, just to transcribe a handful of interviews. That's a huge amount of labor.
Absolutely. It's a major resource drain. Then you have focus group discussions, FGDs.
Right, focus groups.
These are great for collecting substantial data on a specific topic relatively quickly compared to lots of ISIS anyway. They really leverage that group interaction to generate ideas. They foster social processes where ideas are heard, they're developed. sometimes challenged by others in the group.
Yeah, you get that dynamic.
Exactly. They're effective at capturing shared experiences, attitudes, and you can observe group dynamics firsthand.
However, FGDs are typically only suitable for smaller groups. Usually, what, like 6 to 10 participants?
That's the usual range, yeah. Maybe 4 to 12 at the outside.
And the discussion is led by a single moderator, crucially, without breaks or group changes like in the World Café. Everyone stays together.
Correct. It's a contained group.
And like ISIS, transcription is very time-consuming. An hour of FGD audio can easily take 5 or 6 hours to transcribe properly.
It's dense.
And it's definitely possible for some participants to dominate the conversation, right? Leading to unbalanced contributions.
That's a common challenge, yes. Managing group dynamics is key for the moderator.
And their suitability for really sensitive topics is also, well, often debated. People might not open up in front of others.
It depends heavily on the topic and the group composition, absolutely. So now let's directly compare these with the World Café. Participant numbers first. The WC truly shines here. It handles many participants, often more than 12, and as we mentioned, potentially up to 1,000. It really maximizes participation.
Right, whereas ISISs are one-on-one, and FGDs are capped at maybe 12 people, typically fewer.
Big difference in scale.
Okay, what about depth versus breadth?
Good question. ISIS obviously offer deep individual exploration. FGDs explore themes collectively within that small group. The World Café, while generating a huge number of ideas and broadly exploring themes across many people, it generally provides limited depth on any single individual's ideas or specific subgroups' perspectives compared to an ISI.
So you're casting a wider net, maybe catching more diverse fish, but perhaps not going quite as deep in one particular spot.
That's a good analogy, yes. Breadth over depth, generally speaking.
Okay, and the interviewer's role. Big difference there, too, it sounds like.
Huge difference. In ISIS and FGDs, the interviewer or moderator has direct interaction and maintains a lot of control over the discussion flow, the questions asked. In a World Café, the person running it, the interviewer or facilitator, is primarily a process facilitator. They set it up, explain the rules, manage the timing, but they have much less direct control over the actual content of the conversations happening at each table.
Which, as you said, can actually reduce interviewer bias.
Exactly. That's an advantage.
But it also makes clarifying specific responses from individuals or probing deeper on a specific point someone made much more difficult, right? You might not even know who said what.
Precisely. That's the trade-off.
Yeah.
Less control, potentially less depth on specifics, but less bias and more organic flow.
And confidentiality seems like another significant differentiator.
Yes, very much so. The World Café typically offers a high degree of confidentiality because those handwritten notes on the tables are usually anonymous. They're easily shareable without direct attribution to a person.
Right. Audio recordings from ISIS and FGDs, on the other hand, require really careful anonymization, careful handling to safeguard privacy. It's another layer of work and ethical consideration.
True. And the data output itself is different.
It is. WC output is those handwritten notes, sketches, symbols. Their usability can vary based on, well, legibility and how much detail people actually wrote down.
Right, you might get cryptic notes sometimes.
You might, whereas ISIS and FGDs yield detailed transcripts, which are great for analysis, but as you pointed out, very labor-intensive to produce.
So, what's the practical takeaway here? Putting it all together, it really sounds like the World Café complements other methods extremely well.
I think that's exactly the right way to look at it.
It seems ideal for broadly exploring or maybe verifying themes that came up elsewhere, rather than being a standalone method if you need really deep individual insights. Precisely. It's another fantastic tool in the qualitative researcher's toolbox, not necessarily the only tool you'd ever use for a complex project. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this method isn't just theoretical. It's been successfully applied in some incredibly complex real-world projects. Take, for instance, the German-Tanzanian Trans-SEC Food Security Project. It kicked off back in 2013.
Okay.
Its aim was to improve the food situation for rural populations in Tanzania. And it involved really diverse international and institutional actors. Think universities, NGOs, government agencies, both German and Tanzanian.
Wow, lots of players. Sounds like a recipe for potential misunderstandings or conflicts right there.
Exactly, which is why their research objective, one part of it, was to design and implement a conflict management system within the project itself. So they needed to collect qualitative data on actual conflict experiences people might have had or feared and their expectations for such a system.
Okay, that sounds like could have easily devolved into a very tense, maybe unproductive conversation in a traditional meeting setting. A perfect situation to try something more collaborative.
It absolutely was. And the researchers used a really smart participatory design. They combined methods. They did 13 individual semi-structured interviews, one focus group discussion with 16 participants, and then one World Café session involving all 45 project members who were present at the kickoff conference.
Oh, 45. In one go.
In one go. And the WC session itself was surprisingly concise. It only took 90 minutes out of their packed conference schedule.
Wow. And they really leaned into that cafe ambiance you mentioned, didn't they? It wasn't just like a gimmick.
Not at all. They really committed to it. The setup included 9 tables, 5 seats each, and a regular seminar room, but they worked to make it a cafe-like, hospitable space. They had writing materials, but also snacks and drinks on the tables.
Nice touch.
And they discussed 4 key questions. Things like, what kind of challenges could occur in this diverse project? What measures and tools could help address those challenges? Also, what guidelines should be in a project code of conduct? And finally, what's our shared vision for the overall project outcomes?
Okay, really practical core questions.
Very much so. The first 3 were explored in 3 rotating rounds, and the 4th vision question was a single round discussion.
Now, what's fascinating to me is their decision not to use audio recording for the World Café part. That's a big departure from standard qualitative methods. Must have been a very conscious choice.
Oh, it was a very deliberate decision, and a smart one, I think, given the context. The topic was conflict, right?
Yeah.
Inherently sensitive, especially among colleagues who knew they'd have to collaborate closely for years.
Yeah, recordings could really inhibit openness there.
Exactly. They feared it would negatively impact the discussion. So instead, they got incredibly creative with the note-taking. Participants used those paper tablecloths for the first question about challenges, but then for the subsequent rounds on solutions and guidelines, they used papers cut into shapes like leaves, blossoms, and beans.
Shapes. Seriously, like leaves and beans.
Yeah, symbolizing the trans SEC tree and its growth. It was quite visual and engaging.
That's brilliant. A really clever way to visualize the data as it developed, and probably more fun too.
It seemed to be. And then at the end, during the harvest phase, all these contributions were clustered and arranged on a large board as this symbolic tree. So blossoms and leaves represented suggestions, little paper bugs represented the challenges, and the beans represented the vision for the future.
Fantastic. So, okay, what were the key findings from this real-world application? What did they learn from running a World Café in this potentially tricky environment?
Well, first off, the World Café allowed maximum participation. All 45 project members got to contribute, and it successfully initiated a dialogue on conflicts and potential conflicts topics that might otherwise have been swept under the rug or remained hidden until they blew up.
That alone is valuable.
Hugely valuable. It was also highly efficient. They got a wealth of recommendations really quickly, fitting it into that tight conference agenda. That was a major advantage over trying to schedule, 45 individual interviews during a busy kickoff event.
For sure.
And crucially, beyond just the data, it successfully created opportunities for relationship building. People shared stories, connected on a more personal level, which is vital in a diverse, long-term project.
So it wasn't just about the data points, but about building connections and shared understanding. That's powerful. But I imagine it wasn't a perfect silver bullet, right? Were there limitations they observed?
Oh, definitely. No method is perfect. As we discussed conceptually, it was difficult in practice to differentiate specific responses between subgroups, like, did the Tanzanian partners feel differently from the German ones on certain issues?
You're right. You lose that granularity.
You do. And it was hard to definitively identify if some individuals or maybe certain tables dominated the discussion more than others. Mm-hmm. However, importantly, the broad ideas and themes generated from the World Café data were incredibly useful for cross-checking the validity of findings that came from the individual interviews and the focus group. So it actually reinforced its role as a powerful complementary method rather than a replacement. It filled a crucial gap in their mixed methods approach.
Okay, so what does this all mean for someone listening, maybe considering using a World Café? Well, it sounds incredibly useful for its unique strengths. The scale, the participation, the cross-pollination is clearly not without its challenges.
Right. And that raises the important question, how can we actively address those inherent limitations to really get the most out of the World Café method when we use it? The key limitations, as we saw illustrated in the Trans SEC project, often include that inability to easily differentiate individual or subgroup responses. Also, the difficulty sometimes in ensuring truly equal participation from all attendees. Some people are naturally quieter.
True.
There's also generally limited depth of data on any single point compared to, say, an individual interview. And that lack of direct control over the discussion process by the facilitator.
Yeah.
And as that case showed, potential challenges with sensitive topics if you don't manage the process and the recording aspect very carefully.
So if someone's planning or running one, how can they adapt it? How can they try to mitigate some of these issues? What are some practical strategies they could use?
Yeah, there are several practical strategies people employ. For instance, to get a bit more depth, you could introduce specific sub-questions within each round. Another idea is assigning researchers or trained observers to sit at each table, not to lead, but just to observe the dynamics, note participation levels, maybe take some additional qualitative notes.
Like an ethnographic layer.
Kind of, yeah. It adds another layer of insight. Some researchers do choose to place audio recording devices at tables, but again, this needs really careful ethical consideration. You have to weigh the potential benefits against the risk of inhibiting discussion, especially on sensitive topics. Transparency with participants is key there.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the tech or the setup, but the people involved too, right? Especially those table hosts.
Oh, absolutely critical. Pre-selecting and thoroughly preparing your table hosts is hugely important. You can brief them not just on summarizing, but also on gently guiding the moderation at their table, ensuring quieter voices get a chance, keeping the conversation focused, and taking effective notes.
Right, make them active facilitators at their micro level.
Exactly. For larger projects, sometimes conducting multiple smaller World Café sessions, maybe with different groups, can allow for comparison of outcomes and increase the overall variability and richness of the data set.
Okay.
And one more thought. If subgroup-specific insights are really critical for you, one adaptation is to initially have people discuss in their internal groups. First, say, all the managers together, all the frontline staff together, and then mix the tables for the cross-pollination rounds. But you need to be really mindful of potential power dynamics if you do that. It could reinforce existing hierarchies if not handled carefully.
Yeah, that needs careful thought. Okay, let's try and put all this together one last time. It's really clear that the World Café isn't just some, trendy workshop idea. It's a robust, genuinely useful qualitative research method.
Exactly. I really think the World Café significantly enriches the qualitative researcher's toolbox. It's exceptionally well suited for efficiently gathering those broad views, perceptions, ideas from large, diverse groups. Great for exploring complex issues, maybe verifying themes you've picked up elsewhere, and often sparking entirely new directions for thought you wouldn't have found otherwise.
And it's not just about the data output for the researchers. It seems to genuinely benefit the participants, too, by fostering that dialogue, that mutual learning. It feels like it democratizes the knowledge-gathering process in a really unique way.
Precisely. That participatory element is core to its value, I believe, and the clear differences in its application, its strengths, and its data output make it such an excellent complementary method. It works beautifully alongside individual interviews and focus groups. It's really about choosing the right tool, or often the right combination of tools, for the specific research question and context to get that complete, nuanced picture.
So reflecting on all this, what stands out most to you about how the World Café can really transform how we gather insights? Well, if you're looking to spark genuine conversation, gather truly diverse insights from a large group. Maybe the takeaway is that the most impactful knowledge isn't always happening in that formal boardroom. Perhaps it's happening over coffee, with shared ideas in a well-designed cafe-like setting. The World Café isn't just another research tool. Maybe it's a bit of a philosophical statement, too. That the most profound knowledge often doesn't reside just in isolated experts, but emerges from that dynamic, sometimes informal, but structured exchange among a diverse collective.
Well said.
This deep dive, I think, truly shows the power of that kind of collaborative knowledge creation. We really hope it's given you a fresh perspective, maybe some new ideas, on how you might gather rich, qualitative data effectively for your own work.